You are listening to the Love and Money podcast with Shakira. And today I'm going to talk to you about student loans. Our student loans forgiveness, is it in the stimulus package? Well, President Biden, he promised in his presidential campaign to cancel student loans. If you remember, I know I remember, well, his promise was for $10,000. It's not a lot of money, but it is something. And so I'm going to talk to you about student loans and what's currently going on with the student loan forgiveness that was promised during the campaign. Well, as you know, because of the pandemic, payment of federal student loans has been paused where people have they have not had to pay federal loans during this pause, and at the same time no interest is on the student loans. So it's been on pause. It's been put on pause since March 13th, 2020, when the pandemic started, so that if you had federal student loans, then you didn't have to pay those. And also, at the same time, interest is not accruing on those student loans. Now, although federal student loans were put on a pause, private student loans were not put on pause. So, therefore, people who were in student loan debt still had to pay because not only do they have federal student loans, but they have private student loans. And only the federal private loans were addressed. Well, for the people who have had the federal student loans put on pause, the plan is that those loans will be reenacted. Um, they will be reenacted, and also the interest will be reenacted. And the date for that is October 1st, where people will have to start making payments on their federal student loans again. And this is after an 18-month pandemic pause. So this pause has helped some people, mainly the people who only had federal student loans, but it did exclude those people who had federal and private student loans. So as far as the loan forgiveness, there hasn't been much talk on that. Um, Biden promised to cancel $10,000 worth of federal student loans, but the lawmakers are trying to get him to cancel $50,000 of federal student loans per person. So if you have federal student loans, say for example you have $100,000 worth of federal student loans, what lawmakers are trying to get enacted is $50,000 of that $100,000 to be canceled, and that would be effective per person. Biden, on the other hand, is only looking at 10,000 per person, like I had mentioned before. But there's this back and forth between Biden and the lawmakers: $50,000 versus $10,000 cancellation per person. So far, they're just going back and forth on that. There is nothing that has been settled on that so far. So, like I said, they expect people to start paying their federal student loans back starting October 1st, but lawmakers are trying to get that extended till March 31st, 2022. So far, as the student loan debt crisis, there are 45 million Americans who are in student loan debt, and they share $1.7 trillion in student debt. So there are 45 million Americans who are in student debt. So as a result of this pause where people have not had to pay federal student loans, some people have been choosing to use that money instead to pay down credit card debt or to purchase houses or to purchase rental property. However, there are 2 million people who have decided to use this pause to eradicate their debt completely because of the fact that no interest was occurring on this federal debt. It made it easier to pay off the debt because they weren't constantly being charged interest. So there are 2 million people who decided to get out of debt completely during this pause. And the pause, again, like I said, it made it easier because they weren't paying interest on the student loan debt. So that's what's going on. October 1st is the date that they are expecting to reenact this federal student loan debt. Lawmakers are trying to get an extension. So with the moratorium, it allowed actually 2.5 million borrowers to completely cancel their debt. So that's what they decided to do during this pandemic. 2.5 million decided to get out of debt completely. So with this campaign, like I said, again, Biden promised 10,000. Lawmakers are trying to get 50,000. So it hasn't been quite settled yet, but that is in the works. That's what there are. That's what they're currently discussing as far as what it pertains to student loan forgiveness. 50,000 versus 10,000. And again, like I said, this is federal student loan, and they aren't thinking about people who have private student loans because, of course, there are people out there who have both federal and private. So if they could do something for private loans also, that would be good to think about people who are in the other type of debt, not just federal and private. It would be good to think about the people who also have private student loan debt. So this is what's going on as far as the student loan forgiveness. This is the Love and Money podcast with Shakira. If you like this podcast, please share it with one other person. And please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps the algorithm. Thank you for listening.